couple ideas to you guys. I think one of the ways that we are our own worst enemies and raise our stress hormones is by the stories we tell ourselves. Are there any storytellers in the crowd tonight? When I say stories, these are like the false or untrue statements that we tell ourselves throughout our busy days. Now, most of these stories are really just kind of the stuff that comes up, in our mind after we observe something, like a neutral change or a neutral challenge, and then we put it through our perception, right, our filter, and it becomes something a little bit bigger, scarier, uglier. Yeah, once we get a hold of it in our mind, we put it through our filter, we can really freak ourselves out. Now this can be, us, thinking about the past changes and challenges, and when we put it through the filter, it can be scary, ugly stuff. I don't know if you guys have ever experienced this, telling yourself a story, a bunch of stressful thoughts, a story about the past. I don't know if you've ever driven home after a busy day at work, kind of reviewing, regurgitating, conversations or situations that took place, and you're driving there, on your way home. That is a disaster. I mean, that was just so typical of him. This whole thing's a mess, yeah. You're driving home, you're operating heavy machinery, looking more like one of those soap opera characters who's having a flashback. Remembering their time when they were kidnapped and held captive in a cave for several months. So you told yourself a huge story about the day, all the pain and the suffering, all the conspiracies. Then you walk in the door of your house and your husband, your wife, your partner says, "Hey honey, how was your day?" You look at them, you turn to them, you say, "Sit down, you gotta hear this." You kind of launch into a one-person show, describing the sheer hell that you have endured all day long. Much like a soldier just returning home from war. Oh, you should have seen it. Even though these were just, neutral changes and challenges, they become bigger. Now, I think we love to tell ourselves stories about the future. Now, I want you to keep in mind that whenever we say anything about the future with any certain amount of passion and conviction, with any kind of certainty, that's definitely a story, because it hasn't happened yet. And I think we tell ourselves a lot of stories about how it's going to be. Do we have any fortune tellers in the crowd with us tonight? Who love to tell themselves and the people who they work with how it's going to be? Well, let me tell you how it's going to be. This week is going to be insane. We are never going to get all of this done by the end of the day. Oh, you heard it right here first. This meeting is going to be a total waste of our time. She's going to freak right out when she hears this. Oh, you heard it here first. ourselves or the people around us how it's going to be in the future. Whenever we're telling those kinds of stories, I like to call that limited thinking. And that's, I think, I'm going to throw that out to you tonight. Can you catch yourself either making the past seem bigger than it was, or placing limits on the future? Can you catch yourself with limited thinking? Because, because we don't know what's going to happen, so much is possible. I mean, there are thousands and thousands of possibilities for our future, but when we start telling ourselves and people how it's going to be, it's like we look out at all those thousands and thousands of possibilities and we narrow it down to one, and one only. Let me share with you a classic example of limited thinking in my life. Oh, I caught myself. I didn't catch myself right away, but I caught myself after. This was total limited thinking about this certain experience that I had. So it was about a year ago, and I live in Toronto, so I come in peace. Took me about 5 hours to drive here today. Again, I wish I was kidding. But. So I live in Toronto, and I was jogging down to the lake shore to then jog along the lake. So I'm jogging down towards the lake, and I see this group of teenage boys. I don't know what you call that. A herd. I don't know. A gang, yes. Okay, so there's a bunch of these teenage boys in front of me, and I'm jogging towards them. And let me just say right now, let me kind of, paint the picture for you. I'm dressed in very form-fitting Lululemon exercise wear. And there's so many of these teenage boys that I was going to have to jog around them and then give them this shot as I was going away. Enter the limited thinking. I'm jogging towards them, and I'm thinking to myself, oh, great. Oh, I know how this is going to be. Oh, the derogatory remarks. Oh, yeah, the sneers. Oh, I can just hear the catcalls, if I'm lucky. And so I get myself all worked up. I'm gritting my teeth. I want this over as soon as possible because I am fully expecting this to be an awkward situation. Again, with this staring at them. So I start getting closer to them. I'm jogging up to them, and then it was time to go around them, because there was a lot of them. And then, of course, I jogged away in front of them. And as I was jogging away, first there was silence, and then all of a sudden, one of the teenage boys, yells out to me, "I believe in you!" And just like a herd or a gaggle of teenage girls, they all went, "Woo-hoo!" And I jogged away. So how many times in our life do we know how it's going to be? How many times do we approach situations in our personal life or our professional life like I did with that group of teenage boys? I think it's so powerful for us. I think there's such an opportunity for us to lighten up by realizing really how much we don't know. And my mantra now is, and I try to catch myself every time I get out my crystal ball, tell myself or other people how it's going to be. I stop and I think to myself, because I don't know, everything is possible. There's other ways we can lighten up as well. I think it's a little thing called meditation. Does anybody here meditate? Somebody meditating right now? I gotta work on my material then. that's great because really, when you think about it, our stress, our stressful thoughts, are pretty much connected to regurgitating the past or predicting the future. Think about it right now. When you get going, when you start taking yourself and your work far too seriously, when you feel that stress entering, it's probably because you have thoughts that are connected to the past or you're telling a story about the future. So when we are present, when we can bring our full attention and awareness into the here and now, well, that's so good for us because that mind chatter just melts away. But I know that, focusing on the present, being here right now is tough stuff. Does anyone else find it very tough to really bring their attention into the present moment? Because I honestly, if I'm not careful again, if I don't work at it, my thoughts are constantly drifting to the past or going into the future. Like again, when I'm driving home, I'm thinking about all other kinds of things that have nothing to do with the fact that I'm operating heavy machinery that's in motion. Like, I don't know if you've ever had the experience where you're driving home and then you pull into the driveway, you park the car, you sit back and you think to yourself, now how the hell did I get here? I hope everybody's okay. Feel good. Another time I find it very challenging to be in the present moment, in the here and the now, is when I'm in the shower in the morning. I don't know if you find your thoughts racing into the past or the future when you're in the shower. Like all the thoughts that I have in the shower have nothing to do with the fact that I'm in the shower. Like I'm other places, I'm thinking about things that happened, or I'm, in the future. Even though I'm standing in the shower, I'm not really in the shower. I'm just thinking about all kinds of other things. And then there's that point when I realize I have no idea if I put the conditioner in my hair. Have you ever had that moment? You're like, and I don't know about you, but I gotta get myself back on track because by actually taking myself through my routine again to find out where I left off. I'm like, okay, all right, okay. So I was like, okay, did that. Oh, come on, we all do that. Like, how else are you gonna do the one? I'm pretty much pointing out a big pink elephant in the room right now, right? Like, and aren't you glad you're sitting there right now? Like,